So, you're a man of some years now. Maybe you're in your 40s, 50s, or even your 60s. You've been around, experienced life, and perhaps made it through a few heartbreaks along the way. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, a younger woman enters your world, full of energy, a little untamed, somewhat enigmatic, and for reasons you might not fully understand, she starts showing you real attention. Not the kind that comes with politeness or surface-level conversation, but something more genuine. And suddenly, whether or not you admit it out loud, a part of you starts to feel alive again in a way you haven't felt in some time. It's flattering, it's thrilling, and it's also where many men begin to stumble, making errors they don't even know they're making. Here's what happens when an older man is drawn to a younger woman. He starts forgetting that he's already whole. The years he's lived, the challenges he's faced, and the wisdom he's earned, those things are his strength. But in that rush of dopamine, he begins to adjust. He dulls his edges, scales himself down, and attempts to fit into her world rather than remaining firmly rooted in his own. That's the moment the dynamic shifts. She stops seeing a man and starts seeing a guy. A guy who's trying to impress, trying to stay relevant, trying to win her over. And in an instant, the attraction fades. This video isn't here to pass judgment. It's here to bring clarity. It's meant to help you preserve your dignity, your masculine essence, and your self-respect when faced with temptation, admiration, or even an authentic connection. We're going to explore the things you should avoid doing when you're around a younger woman, and how a stoic, grounded man, fully in possession of himself, would approach that entire situation differently. These aren't just tips about dating, these are life strategies. So if you've grown tired of confusion, manipulation, or being pulled off your path by someone who's barely lived half of what you've seen, this might just be the wake-up call you didn't realize you needed. Stick around, because by the time this is over, you'll clearly understand exactly where most men go wrong and how you can rise, by doing less, not more. Number 1. Don't try to be her age, because you're not her peer. One of the most frequent missteps older men make when they begin interacting with younger women is attempting to compress themselves into her world, changing how they talk, adapting how they dress, or pretending to understand her pop culture references. Often this begins with a sincere intention to connect, to relate, but the effect is usually the opposite. You lose the very thing that made you captivating to her in the first place. The second you try to act like her equal in age, she no longer sees you as the grounded, confident, experienced man, and starts viewing you as someone who's simply trying too hard. No matter how subtly you try to pull it off, she senses it. Women, especially those who are younger, have an almost instinctual awareness for authenticity. So when an older man tries to appear cool by imitating her lifestyle, it doesn't come off wrong because of the age gap. It feels off because of the insecurity behind it. Here's the truth. Your age isn't a flaw, it's your advantage. You've gone through things, you've failed and come back. You possess something she can't even define yet. Presence. That strong, grounded presence that only comes from living through life's storms. That's what draws her in, not your ability to reference a trending TikTok dance or quote her favorite streaming show. Yet, many older men still fall into the trap of thinking they need to keep up, when in reality, the most magnetic thing you can do is slow down. Stay steady. Stay firm. Let her express her youthful energy while you remain unwavering in your center. Picture this scenario. You're out with her and she starts talking about how obsessed she is with some 23-year-old influencer. You could pretend to know who she's talking about, fake laugh, maybe even pull out your phone and pretend you follow them too. Or you could just smile and say, I don't really keep up with that. I'm more into conversations that don't vanish after 24 hours. That single sentence, that's strength, that's depth, that's mystery. It catches her off guard in a good way. Not because you're trying to copy her, but because you're reminding her that you don't need to. And that's the paradox. The less you try to relate, the more magnetic you become. Number 2, don't become her emotional sponge. Another common trap older men fall into is becoming the emotional sponge for a younger woman, soaking up all her pain, confusion, and unhealed wounds in the name of being there for her. It usually starts innocently. She opens up about her difficult past. Maybe her ex was toxic. Maybe her parents were emotionally unavailable. Maybe she's working on herself. And because you're more emotionally developed, you listen, you care, you want to help. You think that maybe she sees something in you that boys her age can't provide. But gradually you morph into her therapist, her emotional cushion, the late-night phone call when everything feels heavy. And in your mind, you believe it's building intimacy. You're thinking, if I'm the one who understands her, she'll choose me. But in reality, that's not romantic connection, it's emotional outsourcing. You see, younger women often gravitate toward older men for a sense of stability. But if you confuse emotional support with attraction, you'll find yourself in the worst spot imaginable. The friend zone dressed up to look like intimacy. You'll become the sounding board for her drama, her confusing love life, her spiraling emotions, but none of it will lead to respect or desire. Why? Because a Stoic man doesn't get pulled into emotional chaos to feel important. He brings peace by being peace. He listens without jumping in to fix. He provides insight without getting entangled. There's a major distinction between being emotionally available and being emotionally absorbent. One is mature. The other is just codependency, wearing a mask of kindness. Imagine she calls you crying over her latest situationship, and rather than diving into solutions or trying to console her too deeply, you simply say, "That sounds heavy. I hope you're giving yourself space to sort through it." That one sentence, it signals presence, but not entrapment. She feels acknowledged, but can't pull you into her emotional chaos. That's Stoicism in action. It doesn't mean being distant. It means recognizing the line between offering your presence and sacrificing your peace. A man who's in control of himself doesn't allow someone else's storm to knock him off his course, no matter how pretty the storm might appear. Number 3, never chase her validation. There's a subtle yet powerful trap older men often fall into when interacting with younger women, and that's the pursuit of validation. Now, it might not always look desperate. Sometimes it shows up in excessive compliments, over-explaining your thoughts, trying a little too hard to prove you get her, or fishing for subtle reassurance that she still finds you interesting. But underneath all of it, the energy is the same. Do you approve of me? And the second she picks up on that, the whole dynamic changes. Because regardless of your age, your status, or your past, if your sense of self starts orbiting around her opinion of you, you've just handed over your power. She becomes the judge, the prize, the one with all the leverage. And younger women, whether they realize it consciously or not, are incredibly attuned to this imbalance. They sense it instinctively. A Stoic man never begs for acknowledgement. He doesn't rely on constant validation to feel secure in who he is. His sense of value doesn't depend on anyone's reaction. If she's interested, that's fine. If she's not, that's fine too. He continues forward. That kind of emotional independence, it's incredibly magnetic. While other men are out there performing like entertainers just to earn a few laughs or hearts, he simply is. He's steady, he's grounded, and that calm, non-reactive energy isn't cold, it's rare. And anything rare, that's valuable. Take this example. She leaves your message on read. The man chasing validation might follow up with another text, send a meme, or maybe something passive-aggressive like, "Guess you're busy, lol." But the grounded man, he doesn't flinch. He's not playing games, but he's also not playing chase, because he's not sitting there waiting to be chosen. He already chose himself. That's what gets her to stop, scroll back, and wonder why you're not behaving like every other man. When you stop reacting to her reactions, you become the one she reacts to. Number 4, don't try to impress, lead instead. There's a major difference between impressing a woman and leading her. And many older men, trying to attract a younger woman, fall straight into the trap of the former. They start rattling off accomplishments, like they're reading from a resume. They casually mention their income, their travel history, their car, their connections. And yes, some of that might sound impressive on paper, but it rarely has the impact they hope for. That's because women aren't swayed by what you say. They're moved by how you move. When you try to impress, you're coming from a place of need. It says, "Look at me. Please think I'm worthy." But when you lead, you're saying, "This is where I'm going. You're free to join if it makes sense." One begs for acceptance. The other offers direction. The irony is, the more you feel the need to prove your value, the more you reveal that you're not entirely convinced of it yourself. A Stoic man leads through how he lives, not through loud declarations of who he is. He doesn't need to showcase his worth. It's evident in how he carries himself. She doesn't need a speech about your past wins. She needs to feel your calm confidence in the present. That energy alone creates gravity. A younger woman, especially one who's still unsure of her own path, doesn't need to be wowed. She needs to feel anchored, and only a man who trusts his direction can offer that. Now imagine this. You're out to dinner with her. Instead of trying to impress her with big stories or dropping names, you simply order with certainty, look the waiter in the eye, and guide the conversation with quiet confidence. You ask thoughtful questions, not to seem deep, but because you're genuinely interested. That's leadership. That's presence. And when the night ends, that's what stays with her. Not your tax bracket, but your unshakable composure. Impressing is all about her. Leading, that's about you. And when you lead, she follows, not because you asked her to, but because she feels drawn to. Number 5. Don't project long-term fantasies early. One of the most quietly dangerous things an older man can do with a younger woman is to start imagining a future with her before there's even a present. You go on a few dates, there's chemistry, maybe some deep talks, even intimacy, and suddenly in your head, she's the one. You start picturing her moving in, meeting your friends, going on vacations. You think about helping her grow, maybe even reshaping her life. It feels powerful. But what's actually happening? You're projecting a fantasy onto someone you barely know. You're not seeing her, you're seeing an idealized version of her, a character in your mental movie. What you're doing is turning her into a symbol for comfort, for youth, for emotional renewal. And while it may feel romantic, it's not grounded. Stoicism teaches us to stay rooted in what's real, not in dreams built from emotion. When you get attached to a fantasy version of someone, you ignore red flags. You gloss over clear misalignments. You start investing in a story rather than the actual person. And here's where it backfires. When she doesn't live up to that vision, you feel hurt. Not by her actions, but by the collapse of the illusion you created. And that's not her fault. That's what happens when you confuse chemistry with destiny. Let's say you've been talking to her for 3 weeks, and she's been fun, affectionate, and says all the right things. Suddenly you're imagining her 5 years from now, maybe even wondering what she'd be like as a mother. That's your cue to slow down. Step back. Remind yourself that what you know so far is only the highlight reel. Stay curious, but don't get committed. It's easy to fall for someone's potential, but real relationships require consistency over time. A grounded man doesn't try to write the ending before the first few chapters are even done. He observes, he listens. He lets the truth unfold, without rushing to label it love. Number 6. Don't be her backup plan or emotional filler. One of the most frustrating and painful positions an older man can find himself in is becoming the backup plan, the fallback option for a younger woman. At first, it may not be obvious. She texts you when she's bored, calls when her situationship falls apart, or leans on you emotionally when her life feels unstable. And because you're older, more emotionally patient, and more grounded, you lean into that role thinking, she just needs time. She'll realize I'm the one who really sees her. But that mindset? It's a quiet, slow erosion of your self-respect. Because what's actually happening is this. She's using you as her emotional filler. You're the space she escapes to when her real priorities don't work out. And when those priorities return, she pulls away, again. The Stoic man sees through this pattern early. He doesn't allow himself to be a convenient option. He doesn't wait around for partial affection or attention that only shows up on her bad days. He doesn't make excuses for a one-sided dynamic. When he senses that the connection lacks mutual investment, he simply bows out. Not angrily, not dramatically, just decisively. That kind of exit says, if I'm not your priority, then I won't be an option either. And that quiet boundary, it's powerful. Because the second you allow yourself to become someone's emotional crutch without being truly valued, you're giving away your energy, your time, and your masculinity for free. Think about this scenario. She cancels plans but wants to FaceTime at midnight just to vent. Or she goes on dates with other guys, but always circles back to you when things fall apart, telling you, "I just feel safe when I talk to you." That might sound sweet on the surface, but it's not intimacy, it's utility. You're not the man she's excited to see. You're the man who stabilizes her when everything else collapses. And while that might feel like connection, it's not. A Stoic man doesn't linger in someone else's orbit, hoping to be chosen eventually. He builds a life that's already full, already complete. And if she can't meet him there, he walks away, without hesitation, without resentment, and without looking back. Number 7. Never lose your mission for her. Few things are more self-destructive for a man, especially one who's older, than letting go of his mission in order to gain or maintain the attention of a woman. And when the woman is younger, emotionally intense, and full of unpredictable energy, that temptation can feel almost irresistible. You start skipping your workouts because she wants to stay in bed longer. You postpone that important meeting because she had a rough day and just needs you. You stop building, stop leading, stop pushing forward, all so you can be more present. But what you may not notice right away is that your life is slowly starting to revolve around hers. Your structure weakens, your ambition quiets, your edge fades, and the very qualities that once made you magnetic, your discipline, your purpose, your momentum, start slipping away. A Stoic man understands that his mission is not up for negotiation. It's not something he puts on hold just to make a relationship easier. It's the anchor of his life. Without it, he's left floating, reactive, aimless, and emotionally exposed. Women are drawn to men who are actively going somewhere, building something, moving with purpose. And when you abandon that direction to satisfy short-term emotional comfort, you don't gain love, you lose admiration. She may not say it out loud, but she feels it deeply. When a man starts putting her above his purpose, he stops being a leader and starts becoming just another follower. Picture the contrast. One man says, "Can't talk right now, I'm in the middle of a project I need to finish." The other immediately drops everything, answers every call, rearranges his schedule to be available. The first man, he lives by his purpose. The second, he lives for validation. And yes, she can tell the difference. Here's the truth. If a woman genuinely values you, she'll respect and even admire your commitment to your mission. She won't resent it. She'll find strength in it. But the moment you start giving up that mission for her, you don't become more attractive. You become less respected. A Stoic man stays focused, unmoved by fleeting emotions, because he knows temporary sacrifice often leads to permanent regret. He walks his path fully, and anyone who walks beside him does so by choice, not by demand. Now here's the truth, and I want you to sit with this carefully. Being an older man in the presence of a younger woman is not a disadvantage, it's a responsibility. You've been through life, you've built stability, you've developed a presence she hasn't had the years to cultivate yet. That doesn't make you superior, but it does mean you carry something more refined. And that comes with the wisdom not to chase, not to perform, and not to cling. You don't shrink yourself to make space in her world. You don't become her counselor, her support system, or her backup plan. You don't beg for her validation, and you never abandon your mission just to impress someone still discovering who she is. You lead, you remain still, you offer peace, not because you're trying to seem calm, but because calm is who you've become. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Women are drawn to men who are already full, not needy, not reactive, not caught in their own illusions. A Stoic man doesn't ask, "What does she think of me?" He asks, "Does this align with the life I've chosen to build?" That single shift in thinking? That's what separates the men who get lost in her storyline from the men who continue writing their own. And if you've ever felt that sting, that feeling of having given too much, waited too long, or lost your balance for someone who was never fully in, it ends now. You don't need to become more. You need to become still, focused, anchored. Let her rise to meet you where you are, or let her walk away. Either way, you stay rooted. What are your views on this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I will personally read all of your comments. And if you seriously want to level up in life, don't forget to show some love by hitting the like and subscribe button. Stay strong. Until next time.